Welcome to the third and final day of Natuzzi Sofa Talks hosted by Designboom. I'm Lynn Myers from Designboom, and over the past 3 days we've been hosting a series of live Q&As from Natuzzi Italia's flagship store here in Via Durini in Milan. We're here to talk about Natuzzi's 20 collection, The Circle of Harmony, for which Natuzzi invited 8 different designers to bring their own unique style to the Natuzzi brand. The aim of this very collaborative project was to create a design blend that perfectly combines the different aesthetics of these designers. Yesterday, we spoke to Claudio Bellini and Fabio Novembre, and first today, we're joined by the innovative textile designer, Borre of ByBorre Studio, who has created the water textile collection for Natuzzi, which, as the name suggests, is inspired by the movement of the waves of the Mediterranean Sea. Welcome, Borre.
Thank you for having me.
Borre, you created the water fabric exclusively for the new Natuzzi collection as a tribute to the brand's DNA and, as I mentioned, to the Mediterranean Sea. Can you tell us how this collaboration was born?
Well, after, of course, getting introduced to Pasquale, was the first thing that he said is like, if we're gonna work together, you need to understand where we come from. You need to feel where we come from, and you need to see Puglia. So in our studio, we always make custom textiles for every project we do. So you first have to understand the end product to be able to make the perfect textile for it. But I think the most important was when we got invited and we got shown around in Puglia. That was amazing. But also we saw how much they live together with the soil, with the sea, with the nature. It was in that sense an amazing balance, and that was also how Natuzzi as a family company felt. So when we started discussing it and wanting to come to a point where, like, what do we want the textile to feel, I wanted it to be as a sort of binding as the sea is there. And for me, it's always, you don't realize normally when you're on a couch that you're on textile.
Sure.
It's you just think about the object itself. And I wanted people to sit on it and explore. So in your unconscious, it's the same like how you explore and how you're interacting with nature. And so that was also what we wanted here. So we wanted the different structures. So when you're sitting on it, I wanted people to like literally explore.
Yeah, we should say as well that this is the textile here on Paolo Navoni's sofa.
Yes.
Tell us about this textile. I mean, how is it made to someone that's maybe not familiar with the process, and how did you make this? It's very multidimensional, 3D.
Well, we knit. So a knit structure is made out of all little loops, and it still is a little bit flexible. This is a double layered knit where we also add filling yarn inside, and the moment that the filling yarn is steamed, it swells up in the spaces where it gets space to swell up. So you also see that here in the 3-dimensional parts, it has room to do it, and then you have the attachment parts that are more flat.
Okay. And you've become famous for collaborations before with major fashion brands, from Nike to Louis Vuitton. What was it like working on a furniture product for the first time? And what's it like to see your textiles now on a sofa? How do you feel?
I think, like, what the main difference was, this was the first time also that it was a collection that is made for such a big interior company that really will service thousands of homes. And that made it super interesting. We made like art pieces before, like that were sitting objects, but never in a sense like, okay, it needs to reach the functionality. It needs to be a product that lasts for over a decade.
Yeah.
And so it was a two-sided thing. One, it was how can we capture the DNA of Natuzzi? And on the other hand, it was how can we make it the best performing textile for sofas that will be in houses for over a decade. And that was a super interesting research to make sure that we met all the requirements and that we even pushed the boundaries further. And that was, it made it, of course, very interesting. And now the idea of like that so many people will have it in their homes is very intriguing and interesting.
So you said a decade is how long it would last for?
At least, yeah.
At least, okay. Also in your studio, you have a circular knitting machine. You mentioned the textured knits that was originally built to make mattresses, but you rewired it to create a signature textured knit. When did you first have this light bulb idea to use mattress technology to create textiles?
Well, I think that was more than I think it's 12 years ago that I visited a textile factory that was mainly used for the mattress industry. And the moment that I saw all the structure passing by, the first thing I thought was, oh, I would love to make a jacket from this because it looked very nice. But the moment that I started asking, like, how could we change things, it was all difficult. And it was all made out of very, how would I say it? Yeah, not expensive materials. And I think there the research started because I just thought like, okay, but you had to get these structures in there. How was that done? So then we started rewiring and actually sort of hacking the software. And by now we changed the software. We have R&D relationships with the machine manufacturers to really push the quality of the materials and the outcome, but also to really push the boundaries of the machine itself. And I think there's a sort of a new, we created in that sense a sort of new world in between.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously such great innovation. Do you think in general innovation comes from new production methods like that, or is it always from a creative idea?
Well, I think you have like, there's several layers, I think, to innovation. You have like the trailblazers and the inventors that make total new things from total new materials or new fibers, or they use something that was in a different way. And I think in the beginning, if you look at machines and materials, you have the facts that you make something new. And then you have a step lower, you have the innovations that people use things in different ways with different context. So I think the moment that you bring, and that's more creative. So as a creative, if you bring together an existing construction with an existing material, but they were not meant to be used for this project, then I think you can innovate too. So I think there's a lot of layers to it, but especially it's I think searching for the boundaries of what people know and also how people are used to use those products.
Your logo for your studio is an imperfect circle, right? And I thought it was so nice as well because we have the circle of harmony with Natuzzi. Can you tell us why is it imperfect circle?
It's actually a funny story because that's the first logo we ever made, and how it happened was very nice because I had a dialogue with the graphic designer back then, and I wanted to choose a typography, and he searched for a lot of typographies, and the moment that he all printed them out, he asked me which one I liked best and if I could point it out. And I grabbed the marker and I circled around the one that I wanted, and then he said, oh, wait 1 second. And then he took the circle and put it above the typography. And for him, it was, because he knew me already for a very long time, he's like, this is how you work. You assemble things that are there, then you bring it together and you always give it your sort of hand touch. And that's still something that we do. So for the last 6 years, we haven't used that logo, but we actually rebranding, and that's the whole idea of a retouch and something, and also the hand feel and the touch in the materials we always have. So it's an interesting point to come to.
Yeah, and I think it's nice as well because we're thinking about the idea of sustainability, how we should accept things with their imperfections, and Paolo Navoni actually mentioned that as well. And I want to get on to sustainability because that's something which your studio is very key, very important for you. In practical terms, how are you ensuring that what you produce is sustainable? Like what procedure? How does it come into your design approach?
I think first and foremost, I think it's very important that like you only produce if necessary. And I think especially in the textile industry is a very big world, but it's always a sort of, it's in silos. It is not a product, you don't just use textile, you use the products that include textile, your clothing or furniture. And now in the textile world, a lot of textile is produced on forehand and is stocked and is not all used in the end. And the first step in the studio for us is only produce on demand. So only if necessary, then produce. And then all the steps that we take, so the steps from the fibers to the yarns to the machine and the full production, we all look at those steps separately. It's like, how can we make it the most efficient? How can we make it the most sustainable? And where does everything come from? And that transparency, we try to always tell to the end consumer, so that they also see what their product involves. So I think sustainability for us is not only sort of using a recycled fiber, but it's also thinking about, for instance, the longevity of this couch. The material should last at least 15 years and we should not like throw it away after. So I think it is a very multi-layered word, where I think it's a lot of times it's misused, especially in the clothing industry and in the whitewashing. Like, oh yeah, we use organic cotton. It's like, but is that really better? So I think in that sense, we like really take attention in the studio to unravel all these steps and be super transparent about it and translate that to our clients and to the end consumer.
And do you think, are you witnessing a change in people's appetite for, like, are your clients, for example, asking more questions about sustainability? They want to know more where a product or a fashion piece, for example, is coming from and the process involved. Do you think the people's attitudes is really changing?
Well, the ask for it, yes. I think the first question is always, oh, is it sustainable?
Yeah.
But then when you start the dialogue with them, it's like, what does it really mean?
Yeah, that's the problem. What does it really mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for us, it's, as we are a company that facilitates textile development, we want to educate and help creators to become more conscious creators, so that they actually know what steps they are making. And for instance, in textile, you see that normally to add your DNA or graphics to it, it is an aftermath. People embroider or screen print, so they add onto it. That's also not good. So what we say is, like, within the process, you can already do it, so that you don't have to do extra steps. So for us, sustainability is also limiting the steps, like less material, less steps, less influence of overproduction, and that's where we want to look, and to say, like, okay, but if you look at all these things, then we're making then we will do better for the world.
So obviously here we have your textiles on sofas and armchairs, and you're wearing your textile as well. What's next? I mean, what are you currently exploring? Any different applications of the textile?
Well, we're always exploring. So so in our studio in Amsterdam, we explore always with all different types of machines, and we're researching a lot on the fiber and the yarn level. So I think what I find super interesting is also the next steps that we're doing with Natuzzi, to look into the future of, like, hey, how can we add soft goods also into their world? How can textiles become a main material next to the leathers that they use? And what I find super interesting at this point, what we're doing at the studio, is also the dialogues with all the new yarn manufacturers. So I love the whole recycled content part, and also the storytelling to it, and really showcasing and educating the creators to be part of that, to be part of the bigger solution. So it's not about us, but it's about a sort of the whole movement of
And
creators.
collaborating with different people.
Yeah.
Great. Well, now we have some questions from our Instagram users from both Designboom and Natuzzi. The first question is, when did you first become interested in textiles?
Oh, wow. Well, I was always, as a kid, I was always very intrigued by actually more the buttons and zippers and all these little things. And I knew I wanted to do something with, I would say, fashion, but it was for me very clear that I didn't want to go to a fashion school, because it was always the products that intrigued me. It was not about the shape. It was always about the material. And then the material was, the higher quality the material is, the better for me a product became. So that was why I wanted to go to a material school. So I went to the design academy. And when I was there, it was very clear in the first 2 years that I had such a pull towards textiles. And it became more and more that I was always making products on and around the body that were related to textiles.
Well, that's perfectly to the next question. Someone has asked, would you ever consider yourself a fashion designer? Do you identify as a fashion designer?
No, not really. I don't see myself as a fashion that. First of all, I see myself as somebody that assembles. Also within the team and the people I work with. I surrounded myself with people that can all do the things they do so much better than I could ever do, that it is more that I'm bringing those people together. And we've created a showcase in the form of a label, but it was just to claim, protect, and show what we could do with textiles. And as most people relate textiles with clothing, that was the area where we wanted to start. But for me, textiles is the one product that we use most in the world. Everybody does. You're born, you're wrapped in textile, and your whole life, 24/7, you're in contact with textile, but you don't think about it.
True.
So I really see ourselves as a sort of, I think in that sense, I would always be more of a textile person.
Okay.
And but I really want to create more of a world where people can collaborate with each other and create the things that they really need.
And the final question from another Instagram user is, what are your aspirations for ByBorre?
Well, I think in that sense it's a bit related to what I said before, that we don't want to be a brand and if that's interior clothing, we want to create that platform. And I really see ByBorre in the future as the platform where you go to if you want to create your perfect textile. And if that's for automotive or interior or fashion, but it's mostly about the creators, and that we help the creators to be more conscious, and that while they're using our software, our way of production, and our facilities, they can make a positive impact in the world.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much, Borre, for joining us.
You're
That was
welcome.
really
Thank you.
interesting, and I'm excited to see where your textiles will be next.
Likewise.
Thank you for watching. Later on today, we'll have Nika Zupan's